Hi there, and welcome to the Leaky Bucket podcast. I'm your host, Ian Morgan, and this is the Financial Performance Podcast for entrepreneurs looking to get a better understanding of their numbers, to plug the leaks in their business, and to move from surviving to thriving. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Leaky Bucket podcast. Today we have with us PER SJOFORS, who is known as the Price Whisperer. He's a thought leader and author in everything pricing and how companies can use pricing to drive higher growth, sales volume, and profits. He's a sought-after speaker for various conferences. He appears regularly on podcasts and business radio shows, and also gets routinely quoted in the financial and business press. PER, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be on the show, and I'm looking forward to this, and I hope the audience will find value in our conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. PER, before we sort of get going and go into sort of your areas of expertise, I just want to give people a bit of an introduction to you. So we've got they're quickfire questions, but they may not be quickfire answers. So first of all, is what, in your opinion, are you most well known for?
Oh, absolutely, my expertise in pricing. My latest book is a bestseller on Amazon, and I'm being asked about my opinion, my expert opinion about pricing has been asked for many times, and not only that, I have the how should I say, there are lots of people who followed my advice with very, very significant impact on their business and results. So
Fantastic, brilliant. What do you think that people misjudge about you the most?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think they think I'm smarter than I am. You know.
Why do you think that?
Well, because there are people who are out there think that I can just pull the right prices out of a hat, right? And that there's some magic behind pricing a product or a service the right way, and there isn't. It's process. It's all process. If you follow the process, you end up with the right price. If you don't follow the process, you will definitely leave money on the table. And I developed the process we use, and I'm not really a process guy, but since I've been running so many companies, and I develop a process based on what I had a need for in those various companies.
Yeah, fantastic. PER, what do you think? What are the three most important values that you live by?
What I live by: inclusiveness, honesty, and hard work.
Good, like them. PER, always a challenging question here, right? Which gets different answers at different times as well from different people. Would you rather win with no issues, or fall short and learn something new?
Oh, that's also a very difficult question. Yes. What I mean with that is that, yeah, you sometimes have to win, obviously, with no issues, and you cannot have neither a personal life or a business always learning. You actually have to win sometimes. And so there needs to be a combination of both, and further, it's really hard to learn something, right? It's because when you lose, and of course everybody lose, um, you don't always know why you lose, right? and therefore many losses are just losses without learnings.
Yeah, no, but like it, very good. Success means different things to different people. For
Mhm.
you, what does success look like?
Well, success, and I think I've achieved some of it at least, is that recognition as a thought leader, um, yeah, thought leader, to be able to inspire other people, and to um, to really help through the through whatever process you have, through whatever method you have, to help other people. And other people here, I doesn't necessarily mean it means individuals, but in many cases those are individuals in companies, people running companies, or people in senior positions in companies, so.
Okay. And then finally, before we get into sort of all your thoughts around pricing and that side of things, just give the audience a little bit of a flavour of what led you to be doing what you're doing now. Feel free to start wherever feels natural. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, the story here is that I ran a couple of companies in Europe. I'm Swedish from start. I established a company in Zurich in Switzerland, and ran that for a few years, and I then moved up to London, and ran a company there for a few years. I then came to the US to establish a division of a fairly large public company, and ran that. And consequently, I had another 4 CEO positions. Um, in all of these in all of these instances, we did experiments with pricing, only because it was kind of an interest area for me. And some of those experiments were very successful, meaning that next quarter revenues were up 25% or so. Others were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school, and could read about pricing, was so academic and theoretical that it didn't help us in any way to understand why some experiments worked and others didn't. And 15 years ago, I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun. So I set up my own shop, and I took that interest in pricing to develop a process that would make every pricing experiment a success. And that is the process I build the company around. So and obviously what we do today is much more refined than what we did when we started, because we've obviously learned during the journey as well. And it's been like any company. Sometimes it's more up and sometimes it's more down, but it's been very how should I say, very rewarding to build my own company, and and really come into that role as a thought leader and an expert on a very narrow field, honestly.
The majority of the audience that we've got listening, right, are small business owners.
Hmm.
And I think you can probably cover maybe 80 or 90% of them based off probably 2 pricing methodologies, which I think is probably going to be, it's going to be my costs plus
Yeah,
some number, or yeah, but this is what my competitors charge. So I
yeah,
undercut, or I was slightly above, or thereabouts.
yeah.
Why is that not the right way to go?
Well, there's actually a third mistake that a lot of people do as well, and that is they sometimes call it market price, and market price is a euphemism for guessing, right? Um, so so the prices is correct when they match what a customer are willing to pay, right? And your costs have very little to do with what a customer is willing to pay. You can just consider I mean, we just to make some very, very sort of high level comparison, you know, the manufacturing cost of a Samsung phone and an iPhone is probably very, very similar, right? Yet the iPhone is 10x the price of a Samsung phone, right? And why is that? Well, because Apple has created a certain mystique about their brand, a certain that they stand out in that they have their own OS and they have their own sort of walled garden ecosystem, and for a good portion of the market that is worth a lot of money, right? And you know, other things like the again, the manufacturing cost of a let's say you know, call it commodity watch versus a Rolex, you know, is, yeah, the Rolex may be 10 times the manufacturing cost. So it's a let's say $500 as opposed to 50, right? Yet you know, the latter one is commanding a much higher price than the former one. So so there is that ability that every company has to differentiate itself in such a way that that you get pricing power. And pricing power, actually, that's a phrase that was coined by Warren Buffett. And he said that his most important criterion for making an investment in a company is whether the company has pricing power. And then he continued to define what he meant. And he said, and pricing power is the ability to increase prices without losing sales volume.
Okay.
And that is something you get by differentiation.
Yes. No, I'd agree. I think we probably spent the best part of maybe 10 or 15 years in business being a commodity. We were a tax return filing service. And yeah, just eventually had this breakthrough moment to go, hang on, this is not what we did all the studying to be able to do. Actually, there's a general lack of understanding of numbers generally within the population.
Mm-hmm.
And that we've got a power to be able to help business owners to be able to understand their own performance
Mm-hmm.
far better than what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if we reposition ourselves to be giving people financial control, financial clarity, and a pathway towards financial freedom,
Mm-hmm.
that actually suddenly there was very, very little competition within that. And then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
the market opened up and we moved very much away from a market price then, if you like,
Yes.
for what we were doing, to actually what do we think's fair in terms of the value exchange.
Yeah.
Made a big difference in terms of our company performance, made a big difference in terms of the demand for who wants to be able to work with us, led to waiting lists and yeah, lots of change. Per, in order, yeah, let's go ahead, right? There must be an element of confidence that you developed over a period of time to be able to literally call yourself the price whisperer.
Yes.
Where did that come from? Yeah, and how did you gain that confidence in order to go, yeah, no, I'm literally going to call myself this?
Well, first of all, I didn't call myself the price whisperer at all because I think it's a bit hokey, to be honest. But I'm part of you know, a networking group here in Los Angeles of business owners, and I've been presenting to them many times about the importance of price and how price of a product or a service affect business performance. So they started to call me the price whisperer, possibly because of my wacky name. I decided to adopt it. So that's how where the moniker comes from. the confidence came from, from seeing the tremendous results that we created. And it's I think even, even in our very first projects that we did for clients, where we really just tested out the process that I had developed, and we saw again results with 20, 30, 50% increases in revenues over, a quarter, right? And that of course led to, well, it led to us having really good references, and it led us to continue to refine the process that we had, and we developed our own AI software to support the process, and then just seeing the again the spectacular results. I mean, I have now, if we're talking, these are outliers, but I have dozens and dozens of clients to my company that over a period of years, have grown 10 times their size, grown 5 times their size. And this is because when you price right, your profitability goes up with a substantial amount. And what do you do with the profits? Well, you don't put them in the bank, right? You put them back into your company. So suddenly you have more money to become more competitive. You have more money to spend on product development. You have more money to spend on service definitions. You have more money to spend on marketing. You have more money even hiring the best people that often are more expensive than others. So by starting to price products correctly, or services correctly, you enter this reinforcing cycle of ever increasing business results.
Yeah. Pat, I think a common mistake of many business owners is when they start a business, right? Absolutely, they have to be everything within that business.
Yeah.
There's no money. You can't just hire help straight away unless you obviously have a bank of money, in which case, it's very different. I think then actually what goes into the head is to go, actually, pricing is less of an issue because I'm free, aren't I? There's no cost to me. So therefore, we'll sort pricing out later. Let's just make sure we win some work and we can pay some bills. And I think what happens is that as that business grows, and they probably end up somewhere between into multi sort of 6-figure businesses, sort of £200,000-300,000, $200,000-300,000 interchangeable, I think, really. But
Yeah.
you get to that point where you then go, oh, actually, this isn't really working, and then you can't hire the right people. You're not making the right level of money. How does somebody who's got themselves into that position, how do they start about looking at pricing and how they're gonna fix that?
The often when you end up in a situation like that is a little bit like you mentioned about your company. You are being perceived as a commodity because you have not differentiated yourselves. And it's that differentiation that is always so important. And but you need to differentiate yourselves in ways that really make sense for the audience, and so that they can or for not for the audience, for your customers, in such a way that you offer something that they are willing to pay higher prices for. Again, just like in your case, being a tax preparer is, wow, commodity, but and you said just by reposition yourself, you were able to charge higher prices. You got a wait list of people who are looking for you. And in many ways, you probably extended your services a little bit. But the most important thing was that you reposition yourself in a way that that gave you pricing power, and that is the most important thing for anybody in that sort of, yeah, you're surviving, but it's not great, you know, and to find ways and often also, like you said, often you can do that by slightly extending your services to near-lying activities within the client community. And for the there's something here, for example, in sometimes it could be so simple as just renaming your service. And let me give you an example of this. There's here in the US, I don't know if your audience is global or just UK, but here in the US, there's something called TPA, or a TPA stands for third party administrator. What a TPA does is to administer your pension plan. That's what the A stands for. Um, and that's how TPAs present themselves. You know, we will administer your pension plan. Now, administration is a very low value word. It means moving a piece of paper from here to there, right?
Yeah.
People are not really willing to pay a lot of money for that, right? And in fact, uh, a TPA service is something that folks are willing to pay about $100 a month for, right? Now, what a TPA actually do is not to move a piece of paper from here to there, you know. What they do is to make sure that your pension is compliant with ever changing rules. And if it turns out that your pension suddenly is non-compliant, in a single year, whatever you have in your pension plan is being added to your income, right?
Okay.
So you can easily, if you tucked away $2 million, you know, and suddenly that ends up on your income, a million, at least $1 million of it is suddenly gone, right? So by reframing their service to pension plan compliance management, people are willing to pay $5,000 a year for it instead of 1,200, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the audience can think of similar cases that are relevant for their particular company, you know.
Yeah, I think sometimes it just takes that extra bit of thinking, doesn't it? And a challenge, I suppose, when you're trying to put yourself as in your client's shoes and your customer's shoes is actually a lot harder than it seems, because actually you already know the answers and therefore you
Yes.
don't have the same questions. So
Yes.
being able to put yourself in their shoes and understand, you know, taking ours, for example, like we have to put ourselves in the customer's shoes who don't understand numbers when we understand numbers, which is
Yes.
really, really hard. But actually being able to do that was the realization to go, actually, people don't really care about the actual tax preparation. Actually, what they want to know is, have the actions and the difficult decisions that they've made, have they improved their business or have they made it worse? And they don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to understand apart from looking at the money in the bank, which
Yeah.
is a risky strategy because that could, yeah, turn around and bite you and at some point. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was realizing and having that understanding.
Yeah. It's and it's something that actually, and this goes back to one of my teachings, especially when I talk to small companies and you know, people ask how can I can't afford your service, right? How can I still know that I'm pricing my product or service at least somewhat right? And one of my advice is as follows, and this really goes into what you said as well. The price sets an expectation of value and benefit, and it's something called expectation bias. And for example, it also affects willingness to pay, and it affects the outcome of whatever you are willing to pay for. So, for example, a 5-cent aspirin is not nearly as good in curing your headache as a 50-cent aspirin is, right? And because you pay more, and therefore you expect a better outcome, and because of that you get a better outcome, right? But it also means that if your prices are too low, people won't buy from you because they don't think there's any benefit. And this is another very common mistake, especially small companies that are commoditized or use cost plus, or this euphemism for guessing, which is market price, is that they're pricing themselves so low that they're losing business, right? So my advice when we talk to these very small companies that certainly can't afford us, what I'm telling them to do is go out and find 25 potential customers that are not your current customers and that are not your current prospects, but 25 that could possibly be, right? And I'm saying, describe your product or your service, and then ask them, if you were to buy it, what is a price that you feel is so low that you don't believe in our promise and you won't buy, right? And then you ask them, the second question is, assuming the opposite, that we are actually going to over deliver and be better than you think, what is a price that is still so high that you won't buy, no matter how good it is? And once you talk to at least 25 people, and you take the average of those 2 points, you have a price where you shouldn't be below, and you have a price where you shouldn't be above, right?
Yep.
um, and then, of course, if you can talk to more people, you can start changing the message, just like you did. Instead of saying we are tax preparer, we do something, and I can't remember what you said, but we do something that really adds value to your clients and so forth, and you may find that there's a different range. Or you talk to more people and you say, okay, this is a profile of folks that have a greater or higher range than another profile of folks.
Yep.
So
Per, I'm just thinking of the potential of this skeptical audience member, right? Who might be thinking, Per, aren't you just telling me to just rip people off?
no. You don't rip people off. That is you have to you deliver value, right? First of all, you have to believe in your own value. If you don't believe in your own value, then you're probably not going to be a very successful entrepreneur. You have to believe in your own value, and it's not about ripping people off. It's about often charging higher prices, and because you charge higher prices, you can serve your clients better. Because if you have rock bottom prices for your product or service, you won't have the ability to, if it's a service, or you don't have the ability to do excellent customer support, right? Because you can't afford it, right? You don't have the ability to further develop your product or your service. You can't afford to find new customers with more and better marketing. You can't afford the best people in your organization. So
Yeah.
higher prices is not about ripping off anybody. It's about having the resources um, to deliver a better product and a better service to your clients.
Per, we've got this underlying belief, like we mainly work with service-based business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And my belief is that most people who started a service-based business, they did so because there was an element of frustration that they were working within that industry
Mm-hmm.
and quality was being lost, probably through poor pricing, that meant that companies were being forced to get staff to cut corners in order to break even or make
Mm-hmm.
some degree of profits.
Mm-hmm.
And then they often fall into the same trap and end up in the same position and doing the same thing. But we have this focus ourselves to bring them back and go, look, your focus was on quality.
Mm-hmm.
What you can't do is be saying in one hand, look, I'm all about quality, but actually we're also the cheapest in the market.
Yeah.
Because I think, as you alluded to earlier, people will smell a rat. Yeah, people will go, no, that doesn't work. I know I can't have the best for the cheapest.
Yeah.
Assuming that they've got positioning then right, and they've moved themselves away from a commodity, you've got this strategy where you've found, you've gone and asked the 25 sort of, they're not people who are on your radar, but they're potential customers, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
who could buy. Where do you start? Do you start by changing pricing just to new customers? Do you need to go and change that to existing customers as well?
Oh, how you increase prices. The first of all, there's a guide on our website where I call the 7 easy steps to increase prices and keep your customers happy, right? What you do, and it's really all about first of all, knowing what customers are willing to pay, so you don't price yourself out of the market, right? And one way of doing that is, if you're a small company, is to follow the advice that I just mentioned, but what the way you want to do it is that it's obviously easiest to just change price for new customers, right? And if you just saying that this is the price, period, but there are lots of ways of making sure that you can our decision making is flawed, right? We are not the rational robots that they talk about in business school, when it comes to pricing, etc. All purchase decisions are emotional, right? So, but what you do is that you just set new prices for new customers. For old customers, if they you communicate that we are going to raise prices at some future date, so that they are not you don't want to surprise them by sort of the next time they buy from you, prices are 30% higher. You want to communicate with them, and you need to give a rationale for it. And the rationale is often like, we haven't raised prices for 10 years, and during that time we have absorbed all our cost increases, and we cannot do it anymore. And then you say, so we have to increase our price to recoup some of those cost increases, not all of them. Now, if that works, but it doesn't work if your local TV station has a news story of the CEO's brand new yacht, right? Then that's going to backfire. But and if there's somebody who rebels, you grandfather them in. You say that, yeah, for this time you get the old price, but next time you buy from us, it's going to be the new price. And and there's also something to consider, and that is that the price that generates the highest sales volume and the price that generates the highest revenue and profits are all different prices.
Hey there, really sorry for interrupting, but I really wanted to let you know about some amazing bonus content we have available for you. You see, not only do we record behind the scenes, but also we go deeper into some of the key topics that come up during the conversation. Now, you can find out more about this and access all of it free of charge over on Facebook. Just search for the Leaky Bucket Podcast Community.
And let me just give you an example from, I got a couple of months ago, I got a screenshot from a company's accounting system, I guess it was. And what it says was that I could see that the the sales volume was down a little bit, and margins were up with 41%. And the message from the client was, "I'm happy. Less work, more money." You know.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking, right, with the strategy you've got in place, I'm thinking I've taken myself away from the accounting role as much as I can, but the old accountant brain is kicking in and going, I'm thinking of all these business owners who hear this, and then they're going to take it to their FDs or to their accountants and go, this is what I'm going to do. And the accountants are going to blow their minds and go, where's the logic? Where's the science? You can't just pick a number between two numbers. That doesn't work. It needs to be cost plus this, or there needs to be a particular profit margin. Why is that wrong?
Well, because again, your costs have nothing to do with the value you deliver, right? And the value is a perception of value. There is a one of these academic constructs in pricing that they call economic value pricing, right? As a seller, and this is really for B2B only, but as a seller in B2B, you are supposed to be able to assess the economic value that whatever you're going to sell gives your customers, right? And that's an absolutely impossible task, right? For many reasons. First of all, it assumes that the buyer is open up the kimono so you know everything about the buyer, right? As a seller, and then and I mentioned this to a whole bunch of CEOs that I know. I said, "Would you do this? Would you open up the kimono so that the seller will know everything about your company?" And the answer is, "Are you insane?" You know, of course I wouldn't. The other thing is that in the very unlikely event that will happen, you still have to make so many assumptions. So you're going to sell this. How is adoption going to be? How will employees of this company use whatever you're selling? How many will rebel? You have to make an assumption on say how much money they will save or how much more productive they will be, and do all different assumptions. And assumptions, of course, is a euphemism for guessing, right? Maybe an educated guess, but it is still a guess, right? So the only way to price correct is to understand the perception of value, and how that perception of value is translated into a willingness to pay, which leads to a price that matches the perception of value.
It makes sense, Per. I'm just thinking about our own sort of sales process of what we follow, and we have a bit of a selection program, and that so somebody doesn't go straight into a proposal meeting. Mainly just so we understand the problems that they're experiencing, because we know whether we can add value and fix those
Mm-hmm.
problems. But ultimately, when we go to that proposal meeting, yeah, what we're doing is understanding their perception of the value that we can deliver. We
Mm-hmm.
ask them what their current biggest pain points are. We
Mm-hmm.
ask them where they would love to be, and then we
Mm-hmm.
ask them about what's challenging them from getting to where they currently are to where they would like to be. And what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing is we're making an assessment to go, okay, do we have the tools and the resources to be able to help them?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't, actually, that's the right time to withdraw and go, actually, we're not going to be best fit to sort of
Yeah.
help you go on this journey. But actually, if we do, it's almost like actually it goes off for any of our sales team. It's like almost big alarm bells going off, going, oh my God, this is an absolute perfect fit. And actually, price often becomes the least important aspect of that conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we had more price resistance when we were charging, I don't know, I guess 10 times less fees than what we currently charge
Mm-hmm.
than what we do now. You know, average fee now probably for us is probably £400 a month. It used to be maybe 40 thereabouts.
Oh, wow.
But that £40 a month that it used to be, the amount of negotiation you'd get over that, the amount of, oh yeah, but my mate down the pub can do it for 20 or whatever. Whereas now, I think it's more the case of we talk so much about all the value and everything that we can deliver and how we can
Mm-hmm.
help them on this journey away from pain and towards the pleasure they'd like to experience. I'm just thinking very, very rarely do we get any conversations around pricing, apart
Well,
from, go
it's because you were selling a commodity, and and you were not really differentiated, and with that low price, you are attracting price sensitive customers. And let me tell you another story here of a prior customer. This company has a phone system in the cloud, so that it's a B2B service, and what they do, we went out through our process and measured what people are willing to pay for their particular service and their particular differentiators. And we found that they were so underpriced that they could quadruple their prices, and which they did over about a 9-month period. Now, the result of this, and I'm quoting here the CEO, he said, sales volume went up with 25, and then he continued, and we got rid of the bottom feeders, right?
Yeah.
So and we now have a more professional level of customers. So our customer support cost has gone down with 80%, right?
Yeah.
And that is the key here is to understand that if you're low price, if you're really commodity and low price, you are attracting only the price sensitive customers. And the price sensitive customers buy from you only because of the low price. They don't really care what you deliver. They don't care about learning whatever the product or service is. So instead of understanding a function, um, um, they call your customer support and ask for help, right? And you support these people the best you can. And as soon as there is a competitor with an ever slightly lower price, they're gone.
Yeah.
You know?
Being that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've all been there, done that,
Yeah.
And so I cannot emphasize how important it is to understand in detail what the segment of the market you want to focus on, which of course is the segment that supports higher prices than other segments. I can also the importance of understanding what drives that segment to have a higher willingness to pay, thus supporting higher prices. What specific values are they looking for, right? And so forth.
Per, it springs two questions to me, right? First of all, pricing on a website.
Hmm.
Surely, if your aim is to deliver based on value, then putting a price on a website, even if it's a from price, just means you're getting people who are self-selecting based on price sensitivity, first of all, as opposed to you having an opportunity to show what value you could deliver. Do you
Correct.
agree? Yeah.
Absolutely agree. If you put prices on your website, you have accepted that your product is a commodity
Okay.
or your service is a commodity.
My other question then is, um, do you need to be able to single out a niche, a niche, in terms of a segment of a market or anything like that in order to be able to move away from being a commodity?
If you have to, I mean, in a way, you say by having prices on the website, you self-select to appeal to those who are price sensitive. If you don't have prices on your website, um, those are being removed, and instead you have to have you are attracting a different kind of customers, but at the same time, you have to realize that that you can't go out with a commodity message, right? You have to have a specific value message that appeals to those that are not price sensitive, right?
Yeah.
But let me tell you another story of how you present your prices. If you have it on the website, is also kind of funny. Um, I had conversations with a large tech company up in Silicon Valley, and we're talking about. I mean, they were maybe 10 or 15 billion or something like that, and they were not profitable. And I had a chat with this guy, and he said, um, "Our investors are not willing to support us anymore. We have to become profitable, right? But we can't increase our prices because people are complaining about our high prices. We tried, and it is backfired. You know, what are we going to do?" So I look at their website, and they have a pricing page, and it's one of these long pages where you scroll and you scroll and you scroll, and then eventually you get to the price. And as you're scrolling, it's just messages of, "We are so cheap, we are dirt cheap, our prices are the lowest," and yada yada yada. So whatever the prices was, when you scroll down to the price, your expectation was that they would be very, very low, right? Um, and so I told the guy, well, just remove that page from your website. you know,
Yeah.
and 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 then I followed up a month or 2 months later, and he said, "Well, Per, your advice was pretty good. We took away the page. We have doubled our prices. We are now profitable, and nobody's complaining."
Yes. I suppose
You know?
price and value is just a perception. Yeah. That
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
what's valuable to one person isn't valuable to another because it depends on your circumstances at that time.
I've imagine this. Imagine this. Your willingness to pay for petrol if you're on the way to the hospital with a sick child is probably a bit higher than your willingness to pay for petrol when you're on the way to the in-laws.
Yes. Yeah. No,
So
agree.
circumstance makes the difference.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking, right? Somebody takes all of your advice and guidance and everything on board. They go and reshuffle their pricing. They make sure that they've got some kind of better value proposition, that they're not a commodity. They do all of this. They make all the changes, and then they're done. Yeah. Never need to
No,
revisit it again.
no, no. Pricing is not it's not a set and forget, because everything is changing. The competitive environment is going to change. The if you use technology, it's going to change. If you use services, there's going to be new methods coming out. So this is something that is an ongoing activity, and because of that, you really need to make pricing a centerpiece of your whole business strategy. And again, let me give another example of this. I mentioned earlier that I have a new book out called, oddly enough, The Price Whisperer. And there's a subtitle, and holistic approach to pricing power. And for the launch of that book, I reached out to some prior clients, and I said, "Can you read it and say something nice?" And I got one guy came back to me. Well, I got a lot of nice things said to me, but one guy was very specific. He said, "Well, Per, you helped us to grow from 100 million to way over 1 billion. Thank you very much." And that is because they put pricing as the centerpiece in their business strategy. And that when you do, that starts to make a lot of small decisions different. First of all, and this is very simple math, every company has a profits that is only generated from 3 variables: the total cost, the total sales volume, and the price. And if you do this thought experiment that you increase one of those or decrease one of those, change one of those with 1%, how does it affect profitability? And for the average company, if you can increase your sales volume 1%, profit goes up with 3.5%. If you can reduce your cost with 1%, profit goes up with 5.5%. But if you can increase your price with 1%, or if you can decrease your discounting with 1%, profitability goes up with 11.3%. Right?
Yeah.
And
interesting.
yeah, and obviously this is for an average company, and there's no company that is average. And in fact, on our website, we have a calculator where you can do this calculation for your particular company. And the funny thing is that we did a survey among American CEOs, about 480 or 500 of them, and we said, of these three, which affects profits the most, right? 86% said sales volume.
Okay.
Yep. And I think 8% said pricing, but the point I'm trying to say is that once a company, and this needs to be certainly through the whole management layer, needs to know this calculation for just your company. But what happens is that product management is going to say, okay, can't we unbundle this and sell these as 2 different products, right? Can't we unbundle this service with a product and sell it, because it's going to affect our profitability? Salespeople will not be allowed to discount 15% anymore. They may be allowed to discount 10%, right? And marketing will start to say, how can we market this without discounting? How can we find channels where we can add more value than other channels, and so forth? And it once you put pricing as the centerpiece in your business strategy, you are going to turn your company into the next level. And that even, it goes for those examples you gave, the smallish company that has revenues or turnover, maybe I should say, of 300, 400, 500,000 pounds. All these small decisions are starting to make a difference. Doesn't mean that you're going to double in size in a year, but it's going to start a trajectory that you certainly don't want to stop.
Yes.
So.
But I'm just thinking, right? I had somebody we interviewed recently on here, and he developed a pricing process and system for the accounting industry, which we've used
Mhm.
pretty much since its inception.
Mhm.
And actually, one of the things that removed was the so-called complexity within pricing within the accounting industry, because
Mhm.
it's based on the size of the company, the number of transactions, how many staff are on payroll, all of these things meant that actually you'd have a meeting with somebody, you deliver all this stuff of going, this is all the value and everything that we can deliver. But then it will take me 2 or 3 weeks to get actually a price across to you, because it's so scientific in terms of the calculation. But actually, I'm just thinking in terms of the ratio, in terms of your methodologies, in terms of actually if
Mhm.
that's related to a less scientific approach, there's a science behind it in terms of, I suppose, finding out where the boundaries are and the barriers. But actually, it's a bit more psychological, I suppose, in terms of perception and understanding somebody's value. I could say actually it can remove those barriers considerably between, you build somebody up to see they can see all this value and they're all excited, and but I'll be in touch in 3 weeks. Right. Yeah, I could just sort of see it
No,
nosediving off at that point.
the no, pricing needs to be simple, and having said that, it also needs to be scalable, and I don't specifically know about pricing in the accounting industry, but I I certainly know that pricing needs to be it needs to be scalable in some way based on the value that you deliver, right? And either it's scalable by you scaling different services, or you specific services, or you scale based on um, the size of the company, or like you say, the number of employees. But it needs to be in fairly easy buckets. But what you can't do is to scale on five different variables, because then it becomes way too complicated. And um and what you should do, and that's part of the part of decommoditization, if you like, is that you should do that scaling, possibly, if you can, differently than the next guy. So if the um, if the sort of, if it's by the number of transactions, for example, maybe you don't do number of transactions because everybody else do number of transactions. You find something else that is valuable, maybe just revenue, or maybe the average size of a transaction, or something to that ilk, um, so that the client cannot as easy compare what you do, because then you're back into being that that price sensitive. You're looking for that price sensitive companies who buy from you because you're a commodity, and the lowest price are going to win.
Yeah. Per, if you had to give a summary of where somebody should start in relation to pricing, what is step number one?
Increase prices.
Just increase overall.
Yes, increase prices and see what happens. You
Yep.
can you if you have people rebelling, you can always decrease them again. But
Yeah,
if you decrease prices, it's a process to increase them again, and it may not work every time.
yeah. I think people do get hung up on this on occasions when they're making a decision. People seem to think decisions are permanent, and
Hmm.
actually, no. You can just make another decision
Yeah.
and move forward again, and and decide how to react and whatever. But yeah, people do seem to get hung up to go, oh no, if I do that, that's it, I'm done. And
One
um,
one of my mentors wrote this once, which I think is actually brilliant. And what he wrote was that time 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 wasted not making a decision is lost forever, right? Whereas a mistake can almost always be corrected.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, like it. Very good.
So
Per, where can people find out more about you? You mentioned your website, you mentioned the 7 steps. Yeah, where can people come and find more about you?
yeah, the best way of finding me is simply do a Google search for the Price Whisperer. You're gonna find me. You're gonna find my books. You're gonna find there's a YouTube channel that we have, and you're gonna find the website, and all of the above. You know, that's the easiest way. The company is called Sjofors and Partners, and the website is sjofors.com. Hard to spell, so do a Google search for the Price Whisperer instead. It's much easier.
No, that's fine. We will have all links and everything within the show notes as well, so everybody
Yeah.
can
Oh,
can redirect and get to where they want to be. Per, it's been great. Got some
thank
good
you.
insights into some good pricing methodologies. I genuinely like to disagree with people, but to be honest, I'm finding it difficult to disagree. I think the general concepts of what we've got in terms of pricing and how we've positioned ourselves just seem to completely align with
Mhm.
your thoughts and your beliefs. I do generally like to throw a bit of a curveball question in at the
Go
end,
ahead.
Per, which is if tomorrow you had to start a new business
Mhm.
completely unrelated to what you currently do,
Mhm.
what would you be doing and why?
If I have to start a completely new business and why? That actually requires a little bit of thought. I probably will start a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Because I um, I have a bit of a passion for food. I've written a cookbook. Um, I've been told by friends and family and acquaintances that I should start a restaurant. so that would probably be what my second choice would be.
A high-end restaurant with pricing based off value. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Per, for all of your time, your openness, your honesty, and
Thank you
yeah,
so
just
much.
giving us that insight into your pricing methodologies. It's been really
All
good.
right. All right. Thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to be on the show, and I hope the audience find this valuable as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Leaky Bucket podcast. I'd love it if you could help spread the message by clicking subscribe and leaving a review. Also, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can also find more info and links in the show notes below. See you next time.